So I would like to welcome you to Louisiana history as we examine the course of this region and state from the time that it was first settled by its first inhabitants to as far forward into the 21st century as we possibly can go. This very first lesson is our introduction to Louisiana. And the way that the notes will be tailored, along with the lectures, is that you'll see this opening page with the Roman numeral and then the letters A through however many subtopics we have. For each of the letters that you see there, there will be another lesson on that. So we'll say an introduction to Louisiana, and then we'll go from a state unlike any other to Louisiana's overall geography. There you see, of course, the rich history of the Mardi Gras Indians of New Orleans that salute the Indians who helped them escape from slavery during the years of slavery and oppression. Louisiana is a state that is unlike any other. It is politically colorful. Politics seems to be the chief pastime of Louisiana. But Louisiana is also environmentally rich, from the swamps of South Louisiana to the hills and forests of North Louisiana, the prairies of Western Louisiana, the forests of Central Louisiana. Louisiana is very diverse in its environment, its climate, and its people. Louisiana is a state that is forever catching up or falling behind. It normally ranks somewhere near the bottom in most every category, such as education, healthcare, literacy, and so forth, around 48th, 49th, or 50th. Louisiana is indelibly influenced by the river that flows through it, that is, the Mississippi River. Its whole existence in many ways, especially geographically, depends upon the river. And it is indelibly influenced by the people who settled in it, from the first native inhabitants that we call Native Americans or Indians, to the French, Spanish, African slaves who were brought here, Irish, Italians, Asians, both West Asians and East Asians. This state is incredibly influenced by its people. And as I said, the people of Louisiana are a people unlike any other. Culturally, they are diverse. They have held on to their ethnic traditions. They're very proud ethnically, very independent ethnically. Louisiana people tend to be very religious, and yet, almost at the same time, as in a sort of yin-yang, there is a sense of irreverence, a thumbing of noses at convention, a tendency not to take themselves so seriously in certain parts. Louisiana's people are incredibly influenced by tragedy, whether they be natural disasters like hurricanes, floods, or by human disasters such as massacres and human oppression. Nonetheless, the people of Louisiana are influenced by tragedy, but they do not let it define them. Instead, they define it. As stated earlier, Louisiana politics are politics unlike any other state in the nation. Now, there are other states that have very colorful political histories. Massachusetts, for instance, Illinois, California. But for Louisiana, politics occupies a very central part of this state's history. The politics of Louisiana are often entertaining, as you see Huey Long in the upper right-hand corner, sometimes embarrassing, with both Edwin Edwards and Bill Jefferson and their disgrace. Louisiana politics is always interesting. And Louisiana politics is forever in need of reform. There is a yin-yang between forces, what they call themselves later good government, and those of who are against good government, who see government as a means to get ahead for certain groups of people. The economy of Louisiana is often in a state of crisis, in a state of change, in a state of instability. The economy of Louisiana is largely agrarian: farms, sugarcane, cotton, rice, soybeans, other staples as well are grown here in Louisiana. And so farms are really the backbone of Louisiana. But Louisiana's economy has also been heavily influenced by oil and gas in the last century. The discovery of oil and natural gas has had a massive influence on the economy of Louisiana, both in a positive manner, but also in a negative manner. Louisiana has a heavy dependence upon tourism. The people that come to New Orleans for the various festivals like Mardi Gras and the Jazz Fest, or to the various festivals in the outlying towns of Louisiana, or for hunting and fishing, for gaming. Louisiana's strategic position at the mouth of the Mississippi River means that it's going to have a large military influence. Fort Polk in western Louisiana, the Joint Naval Reserve Air Base at Belle Chasse, are but two indicators of how strategically important Louisiana is. Louisiana is generally deficient in outside business. Outside businesses and corporations are very reluctant to come to Louisiana for a number of reasons. First, the political situation remains unstable in some ways, and also the general education of the population and the training of the population also prohibits outside businesses from locating. And nonetheless, there are some businesses that do come in, but in many ways, oil and gas have really dominated that market. Louisiana's economy is also one in which the people are chronically undertaxed and yet at the same time overtaxed. Not enough property is taxed in Louisiana, and yet at the same time the middle class and the lower classes spend a great deal of money in sales taxes, or as what are called sin taxes, that is, taxes on alcohol and tobacco and so forth. Now, these are the facts about Louisiana, the statistics of Louisiana. It's the 18th state in the Union, admitted April 30th, 1812. Its area, state flower, capital, bird, and so forth. Its largest parish in land, largest parish in population, number of parishes. Our highest point, Mount Driscoll, all of 535 feet. Take that, Mount Everest. We've had 61 governors. We've had 11 state constitutions and probably need to have another. These are some of the aspects of Louisiana when it comes to what marks our state. And here one can see the state flag and the state seal with the motto on it, Union, Justice, and Confidence. And the most notable aspect of both the flag and the seal is the Louisiana pelican, which is our state bird, feeding its young. As diverse as the people are, so also is Louisiana's geography and its topography. Understanding Louisiana means that you need to understand the land of Louisiana, the water of Louisiana. It is crucial to understanding the state because the geography of Louisiana is diverse. In the south, there is marsh and swamp. In the north, there are forests and uplands. In the east, along the Mississippi River, in northeastern Louisiana, is the Delta region. To the west, past Lafayette and toward Lake Charles, are the Great Prairies of Louisiana. And throughout the state, are the great rivers. The three great rivers of Louisiana, the Red River, which you see by the arrow in the upper left of the picture, the Atchafalaya River, which is the lower left-hand arrow, and of course the Mississippi River, which forms the border of Louisiana with Mississippi in northern Louisiana, and then flows through the rest of the state, passing New Orleans on its way to the Gulf of Mexico. The Mississippi River is the most pervasive feature of the state and makes the state so vitally important to the rest of the nation, so strategically important to the rest of the nation. And it is in large part responsible for how Louisiana has come to be. Now, as you look at the map of Louisiana again, you notice the brown line, which indicates the upper continental shelf. Everything to the south of that brown line has essentially been built up over many thousands of years by the Mississippi River, which acts like a big, muddy garden hose, depositing silt all to the south of there. Now, the river flows through New Orleans today, but at one time, the Mississippi River did not always flow in that particular channel. At one time, it flowed through the Chandeleur Islands in St. Bernard Parish that you see there in the green. At another time, it flowed through the Vermilion River Channel, which flows through Lafayette and the little town of Abbeville in southwest Louisiana. Another time, the river flowed through Bayou Teche, which is the bayou that flows through New Iberia and Franklin and all the way down to Morgan City. And the river has also flowed down the Atchafalaya River, which it now has 40% of the river flowing through the Atchafalaya that leads all the way down to Morgan City. The river has also flowed down Bayou Lafourche in Lafourche Parish, as well as Bayou Terrebonne. And so that gives the state of Louisiana its basic shape in the southern portion of the state, which is very important because the land there is very marshy, very swampy, and also serves as a buffer zone between hurricanes and the populated centers that are near the coast of Louisiana, including New Orleans. And I'd like to draw your attention to the area with the circle around it, and there is a little town in Louisiana called Simmsport. And Simmsport is where the Red River comes meeting into the Mississippi River, and the Atchafalaya goes out of the Mississippi River on its way down to Morgan City and the Gulf of Mexico. It is there that one of the largest engineering projects in the world manages to keep the Mississippi River flowing through New Orleans and not down through Morgan City, although 40% of the river already flows down through the Atchafalaya toward Morgan City. Sea water has a tendency to seek its lowest level and do it in the most expeditious manner possible. And as you can tell, it's a shorter route to Morgan City than it is through New Orleans into Plaquemines Parish. What is known as the Old River Control Structures, or called Old Man River for short, is located here in a series of channels, a series of floodgates, a series of high levees, and a spillway called the Morganza Spillway, just a little bit to the south of Simmsport, Louisiana. These structures that you see here keep the Mississippi River from flowing into the Atchafalaya, which is the easier way for the water to go, and diverts the Red River into the Mississippi River. Now, what you see here is how the course of the Red River and the Mississippi River have changed over time, both due to nature and due to human interference. Rivers like to meander, and then they like to cut off their loops as they meander. Well, Henry Shreve in the 1800s did this. He cut off a loop of the Mississippi River, who was the great steamboat captain, Henry Shreve. But you see that even he could not hold back Mother Nature. The Mississippi wanted to go toward the west. And so you see how it has come today and what the problems are as the river tries to get into the Atchafalaya Channel. Here you see but a few of the massive concrete and steel structures. The significance of this is the fact that as more and more water begins to flow down the Atchafalaya, but as I've said already, 40% and flows out into the Gulf of Mexico, is beginning to build a delta structures should give way to diversions. One is the Atchafalaya's mouth, of course, that means that the other is the amount of water is going to go past Morgan City and interfere with a lot of oil and gas business that are extending further in that section of Louisiana. This is building up wetlands, and this is